quite unfortunate that every time it seems like I go ahead and start my StreamYard in the background. I apologize for the angle here while I was moving from location A to location B. It was muted. So now that it's unmuted, I'm going to go ahead and rehash what I just said in summary. That big week last week, Ken Paxton won and was completely exonerated, just like Trump was twice over. And then you have the House Admin Committee Subcommittee on Oversight is going to be questioning Chief Son. So I look forward to that. We're going to be going into it's starting at 3 p.m. I'll be in D.C. at the time, making sure I'm listening in and making sure I'm observing what questions are being asked by the members of Congress on that subcommittee. Congressman Griffith, Congressman Loudermilk, who's the subcommittee chair, Congressman from North Carolina, name escapes me, and then Congressman Desposito from New York. Hopefully we bring in some other members of Congress that can ask some questions, such as the Congresswoman from Oklahoma, Stephanie Bice, and maybe that committee will invite Senator Ted Cruz in to maybe ask a question or two of Chief Son, particularly as it applies on his thoughts of Ray Epps. And then maybe Thomas Massey can also come in and ask some questions related to the pipe bombs at the DNC and the RNC. Maybe Congressman Troy Nehls can also be waved in to ask questions about Yogananda Pittman a little bit further. The actions of Yogananda Pittman, Julie Farnham, Tad DeBias, Thomas Manger, the inspectors general, the three of them that have been in that position since January 6th, to determine what role did all of them play in making sure that the true story of January 6th, the holistic true story of January 6th, would not be exposed, and then their cover-up behind it. So I really look forward to that testimony. Next up we have is, let me see here. Wednesday, I think Garland is testifying, I thought I saw somewhere. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to testify about. Thursday, we have Elvis Chan coming in for a sworn testimony, transcribed. He's the guy, I don't know, a lot of people saying that he might be a Chinese Communist Party agent asset as well, just like the guy squatting in our White House, Joseph Biden. Jeden, I believe it's pronounced. And so hopefully he's asked about his role in the censorship industrial complex that has taken place and what role and relationship he had in communicating with, I don't know, Brian Auten over at the Foreign Influence Task Force at headquarters at FBI, excuse me. I want to make sure I pronounced that right. And then also what's his name? Joseph Pientka III over at the San Francisco field office. And then Elvis Chan's communications with Jim Baker, and then the rest of the folks that decided to go ahead and censor you, me, and others based on my truth telling on the different social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, Insta Garbage, Twitter 1.0, LinkedIn, CommieTube, etc., etc. We want to see all the communications that they had with all the big tech players and maybe even mainstream media players to be able to determine what could be spoken about and what information needed to be censored. And then another question that should be asked is any communications with the official, fact checker, as they call it, of Twitter 1.0, which happened to be Reuters. Some people pronounce it Reuters, but I think it's pronounced Reuters. That would be the more accurate pronunciation. And again, remember, Reuters CEO is also a board member of the biggest DNA mutilation distribution company known as the Pfizer fail, right? So it'd be interesting to find out that the communications that took place between all those different players and how good old Elvis Chan was at the epicenter of it, coordinating it with Christopher Ray Epps' FIDIF over at headquarters, the field office there, the rest of the field office in San Francisco, and then all the big tech mafia in order to create this disinformation component, which was literally silencing anybody that basically not only questioned but called out the unsafe and ineffective emergency use authorized products, whether it's the DNA mutilators, the face toilets, or the nose rapes known as PCR tests. And then also anybody that exposed that the 2020 election was a complete sham. It was a complete garbage. It was illegal, right? We all know it. Some people stolen election, illegal election, complete fraud. I mean, it was a complete, I can't use expletives here, but you know what I want to say, right? Absolutely. That's kind of what we witnessed and experienced with that 2020 election. And they canceled, censored, silenced everybody that was involved in it. And guess what? It seems as though Elvis Chan was at the epicenter of it. So maybe we can get him to start whistling Dixie and squirming and start disclosing all the different people within the White House, the FBI, the DHS, the DOJ, big tech, big media that he interacted with, the whole Biden criminal syndicate laptop cover up, who he communicated with amongst the 60 that provided top cover that signed off on that memo that was published by Politico, stating that the Biden laptop had all the earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. So we're going to expose this, and that's going to be on Thursday, that testimony before the Weaponization and Judiciary Committee. I suspect Ivan Raiklin's going to be probably up there, maybe, listening in, or at least asking a question or two on the way in. That would be my good guess if I'm in the area. So that pretty much covers this week. Another thing I wanted to talk about, since we're only got about 15 minutes, 17 minutes left in the show, is had a pretty good weekend. Saturday, I came up to New Hampshire to an event for His Glory. There we had a revival tent. General Flynn was speaking. I was there. We also had an opportunity to head down to Rhode Island. If you followed my Twitter and some of the other posts that I've put out, definitely a fantastic time. Just making sure that we can continue to educate the country on this lawless executive branch and how we claw back at it. Yesterday I spoke with General Flynn. I was the first speaker at a local Rhode Island grassroots election integrity and education forum. I spoke, I don't know what it was, maybe 20, 30 minutes, and gave the historical context of, how our Constitution came to be, because yesterday was Constitution Day. Over the last 250 years, how that came into play, Rhode Island being the first state to actually declare independence from the Brits on May 4th of 1776, a full 2 months before the rest of the colonies, and then became states, then developed into the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution, and then gave a little bit. I think yesterday was the first time at a public speech that I gave a little bit of detail on my why and why I'm involved in this fight. I think you can allude to it based on the experience that my parents, particularly my father, with his political persecution when he was in the Soviet Union before he fled. And now we're in a similar situation as a nation, that those that are critical thinkers that are trying to promote truth are being persecuted. And now we're seeing that in the United States. And the person that's being persecuted the most are the ones that are speaking the most truth to power. And you all know who those people are. And General Flynn is obviously at the tip of the spear of that persecution, and he continues to fight. So I was honored to tee him up. I'm going to go ahead and post up that speech when that's ready. And then after that, it's been kind of a whirlwind. Been doing events, meetings. And then what's today? Yesterday we had an event. Today we're out in the woods doing a little bit of training. And yeah, that kind of covers the weekend trip. I'll be back in Virginia hopefully late this evening. But speaking of Virginia, it looks like Kevin McCarthy has failed to perform on the obligations and the agreement that he made with the Freedom Caucus in January. And so if I were a guessing man, which I do like to guess, but sometimes I call these assessments, my personal assessment is that you're going to see Kevin McCarthy being vacated no earlier than Thursday. And it might take place on Thursday. So I'd say low to moderate level confidence that he's going to be vacated on Thursday. And it really depends on if he wants to dig in because he feels like he has the leverage and power, because, the Paul Ryans of the world, the Mike Pences, all the uniparty actors, the globalists, that are going to fall in line lockstep behind Kevin McCarthy. He's going to feel confident and comfortable that he can, continue down the path that he's doing. It's going to come down to the same folks we saw in January, and whether or not the people are now awoke enough to provide a spine to the real Team 6. We already know where Matt Gaetz stands on this, but he can't really push for that motion to vacate until we get another 4 members of Congress that have a spine in order to agree with him, so that there isn't sufficient number of votes for Kevin to remain. And I suspect at this point, the following individuals are going to back Gaetz, and this is just my personal assessment: Eli Crane, Andy Biggs. I think Paul Gosar is going to step in the breach. Dan Bishop is starting to really move in that direction. What are we at there? So Gaetz, Eli Crane, Andy Biggs, Paul Gosar, Dan Bishop. You kind of already have the 5 that you need in order to make sure that there's not enough votes for Kevin McCarthy. And if those folks decide that, you know what, we're not going to budge, well, guess what? Best case scenario, we have 14 months of no Speaker of the House and no functioning House of Representatives. Thus, no government that can be used to weaponize against you and me and all of us. To be honest, that might be the best case scenario. That buys us 14 months. What about other scenarios? Let's think this through. Okay. Kevin McCarthy folds. Everyone starts to read the 13-part Substack series that I wrote about my counterintelligence investigation into Kevin McCarthy. Nothing's really changed, right? All the FTX-laden money that his PACs have received, all the all of the stuff that's listed as counterintelligence threats to him are then exposed. And we need to boot him. So then who takes his place? Well, let's go back to everything that I was talking about in November, December, and into January 3rd and that first week of January. It comes back into play. Well, let's think this through. Speaker Trump would be nice, but the Democrat Republicans, or I should say the CCP Republicans, they're going to push back against that, even though they know they were wrong on everything. They were wrong on COVID. They were wrong on the impeachment hoaxes. They were wrong on everything, right? But it's all about ego. So they're going to continue to fight the truth. They're not going to. There's at least 5 of the CCP Republicans that will not vote for Trump. Okay, so then who do we have next? We have Devin Nunes would be the next best thing in order to start working Congress. But they're going to see that as being too closely aligned with Trump, and those same 5 CCP Republicans, Don Bacons of the world, the David Valadaus, the Dan Newhouses of the world. Those are the worst 3 Republicans we have in the conference, right? And then you're probably going to have folks like, the brother of a failed vice president and now one of these failed candidates running for president. Remember Mikey Pence? Yeah. He's got a brother in Congress. So that would be a 4th one. And if I was guessing, let me see if I can think of a 5th one that would probably vote with those folks. Can't think of one right now, but those are 4 right there that are the CCP Republicans. And I'm sure they could find yet another one, especially those that are in the weak, toxic, feckless, stone cold, coward, gutless simps that are like, I'm in a swing district. I can't. I'm going to lose if I vote for the truth because my district is filled with so many CCP faux news manipulated Republican voters that still don't believe that there was a pandemic. The quadruple boosted Republicans, right, is what I'm referring to. And then the other ones, the non-critical thinkers, right? So these are the reps that are also going to fall in line to that. What else do we have? Who's next? Maybe Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin is an interesting play. There might be an opportunity there where a Lee Zeldin could be a speaker. But again, I don't know if that could be riding the seam. They're going to say he's not a member of Congress. That's non-standard. Let's not do that. Blah, blah, blah. The other option is Steve Scalise. Now, Steve Scalise got a unanimous vote, but due to his health issues, possibly as a result of him getting, I don't know if he's been boosted or, he might be part of that quadruple boosted CCP Republican group. Who knows? The non-critical thinkers. But he did get a unanimous vote, so it's interesting. He's interesting. Unfortunately, he is having health issues. I think there's some blood cancer or whatnot I heard about. So that may preclude him or his desire to be the Speaker of the House after Kevin McCarthy is removed. So it's unclear. Hopefully he recovers. I mean, I don't want to sound crass, but I do laud him, and I have a lot of respect for him for his recovery from being almost assassinated by a radical leftist domestic terrorist. Who knows? Could have been another one of those FBI affiliates that was tasked to go ahead and conduct political violence. Remember, that's what that organization does, right? They're the lead domestic terrorist organization, pronounced the FBI, and they do a lot of this nefarious activity, whether it's in Michigan, whether it's on January 6th, their involvement with their affiliates, or whether it's possibly they were involved in recruiting and training that guy that went ahead and went after Steve Scalise. I don't know. I'm just asking the question. No one's ever really looked into that because it's easy to do a violent act like that, get somebody to do it, and then have him all of a sudden be killed or vanished, and then there's no investigation, right? So the objective is met, blah, blah, blah. It's unfortunate, but then the investigation ceases, right? And we never find out exactly really if it was a conspiracy or not. Anyhow, I do have respect for Steve Scalise for his recovery from that political hit on him. But it'd be nice to know whether or not he subjected himself to the DNA mutilation injection and whether or not that had a role in his physiological demise, similar to Jamie Raskin, who's showcasing with his do-rag every day he comes into the hearings, whether or not he also subjected his body to the DNA mutilation injections, either by the world's main DNA mutilation distribution company, the Pfizer fail, or whether it was the other one, the Moderna emergency use authorized product. Who knows? Just asking questions. So it could be Steve Scalise if he decides to do it. But again, health, not sure how that's going to play into it. Next up would be, let's think this through. In leadership, I think the next logical one would be Elise Stefanik. But again, the CCP Republicans will view Elise Stefanik most likely as somebody that's too closely aligned with the source of their TDS, right? Of their Trump derangement syndrome, or the Orange Man Bad syndrome that the CCP Republicans have disdain and disgust for, right? So then what does that leave us with next? You got Jim Jordan, you got Scott Perry, which are leaders within the... What about the Republican Studies Group? Who's heading that up, right? It's going to be an interesting week. So I'm going to say this. Thursday, so let me recap as we finish up. Last week, massive win. We got Ken Paxton. We got Chief Sons testifying at 3 p.m. tomorrow before the House Admin Subcommittee on Oversight. And I think he's going to expose quite a bit of things as it relates to January 6th and whether or not it was a intelligence failure or an intentional failure to facilitate the breach of the Capitol so that there was no airing of grievances and objections to show that it was an illegally conducted election. Wednesday, A.G. Garland, I think, is on the books there, and then Thursday you have Elvis Chan is going to be testifying. I'm probably going to try to write I did write a Substack about what questions should be asked of Chief Son. So go ahead and take a look at my Substack. Let me go ahead and tell you where that's at. ivanraiklin.substack.com. Okay. And then I'm probably going to try to put out another Substack going into Thursday on what questions should be asked of Elvis Chan as the Weaponization Committee and the Judiciary Committee goes in and questions that nice little censorship. Who knows? Could be a CCP agent. If I was the Chinese Communist Party, that would be definitely an individual that I would want to recruit to essentially destroy America. So we'll see if he was an actual agent on behalf of China. We'll have to look into him some more. Maybe I'll do a counterintelligence investigation into him in more detail. For those listening in, if you do have access to certain databases to take a look at individuals, I would say that please help me out. Let's take a look at Elvis Chan and all of his relationships, affiliations, using legal, lawful, open source tools to determine whether or not, if it's just political bias that he incorporated into his work over at the FB Live field office in San Francisco, whether or not he's perjured himself before the Missouri v. Biden First Amendment case, whether so we're going to look into him and then help me out in determining what questions we should ask him as I put together a Substack article related to what questions to ask Elvis Chan and his relationships with the 60 scum providing cover for the Biden laptop, the 39 that unmasked Flynn, those involved in Crossfire Hurricane, the Mueller investigation, the Eric Charamella fake whistleblower scheme, and then everything involved in that, and then any of the activity with the censorship industrial complex. So we'll go into that further later in the week. For now, Raiklin report complete, and I'm about to go on, I believe, the Pete Santilli show. So with that, follow me everywhere. Till tomorrow, Raiklin report out.